Hello again. I'm back with another block. Today we are going to learn how to do lace. Lace is really fun. It's got these holes. And the way you get these holes, these are wanted holes. These are not stitches that you dropped. These are intentionally placed through what is known as a yarn over. So every time we add a stitch in the form of a yarn over, what we do to keep our stitch count is we have a corresponding decrease. So I'm going to show you a right slanting decrease and two forms of a right slanting decrease. So we're going to work on this nice lace block, and we're also going to take a look and see what's in my bag. All right, so here we go with our lace pattern. And the lace pattern that we're going to be doing is worked in a multiple of 7 stitches. So 7 times 4 repeats that we're doing is 28 stitches, which is a little on the low side for the size block that we want to do. Remember, we're aiming for 7 inches. And because the stockinette stitch has a tendency to roll, we are going to be working an edge stitch. So we're going to be casting on 30 stitches, and we're going to work the beginning stitch and the ending stitch of every row. We're going to be knitting them. So we're working a garter stitch, edge stitch. Okay? Usually edge stitches are not included in the stitch count or the pattern instructions. They'll tell you, work an edge stitch at end of every row, not included in pattern, or something like that. So when you're doing an edge stitch, you do your edge stitch. Then you look at the pattern for your instructions. And the instructions for this row are knit 1, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 4. So there's our knit 1. Our knit 2 together, we're used to knitting like this. Knit 2 together simply means we are going through 2 stitches instead of the usual 1. And what that's going to do is decrease us down from 2 stitches to 1. Now this knit 2 together is also known as a right slanting decrease because the decrease slants to the right. Now, because we've lost a stitch, our stitch count is off. So what we do is we compensate for every decrease with an increase, or vice versa. We want these yarn overs for these lovely holes, so we're actually compensating for a yarn over by decreasing, whichever way you want to think of it. And the rest of our pattern is knit 4, and then we are going to start the row over again. But we've started with a knit 1. So to make things easier, what we're really doing is knitting 5. Here's 3. I'm at a very awkward angle, so and I don't want to hit the camera with my knitting needles or be too far away. So we've got our edge stitch, we've got our knit 1, our knit 2 together, our yarn over, and then we've knit 5. We're going to do another yarn or another knit 2 together, yarn over, and knit 5. And that's all there is to it for this particular row. Let me count, make sure I did that right. Yep. So knit 2 together. You're going to go in slightly turning your needle. Bring your needle kind of more in front of you and pull these stitches apart a little bit to help get the knitting needle in. But it's as easy as that. Then you just simply bring the yarn forward. When you work your next stitch, it's going to be yarn forward. It's going to wrap around with your next stitch. See how it forms that stitch? You can tell it's a yarn over because it's not really, it's just looped over the needle. It's not really connected with anything below. Okay, so we're going to pull it apart a little bit and look at it. You can see our knit 2 together. You can see how it kind of goes off in this direction, our yarn over, and our knit 5. We'll do that one more time. And remember, our stitch pattern ends knit 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our edge stitch. Okay? Lovely. Now, the wrong side rows are simply purled. You just purl all the way across. However, remember, we're going to be doing our edge stitches on each end. So we still want to knit the first stitch, bring our yarn around, and purl. Now, did you see? Let me back up a little bit. I had the yarn in the back. To do the purl, I bring it to the front. But what if I want to do a yarn over in between 2 purls? The yarn is already in the front. So in cases like that, you simply bring the yarn around the needle and then bring it to the front again. And that will keep the loop. We're not doing any increases between our purls, but yarn overs are just bringing the yarn forward. And if the yarn is already forward, you want to bring it around the needle again. And that will increase by 1. You can also increase by more. You can do a double yarn over, and that brings the yarn forward. Then it loops it around the needle, just like we did between the purls. And the purpose of that, usually on the next row, you're going to drop the stitch. So you want something elongated. You want it to form a decorative element on your knitting. But that's how you do a knit 2 together. A purl 2 together is just as easy. Instead of purling one stitch, you're going to scoop up both stitches that are next to be worked on the left-hand needle. Here's our edge stitch, so bring it to the back. So yeah, purl stitches are just as easy. You just work 2 purls together. So you can knit 2 together or purl 2 together. Now, we've done 2 this way, 2 that way, so now it's time to do 2 that way again. But if you'll notice, there's a little bit of a resting spot in between these. So what we do for those resting spots is we simply knit across. So just like any other pattern that I've shown, there's ways of figuring out what you're doing. So you do 2 lace holes, 2 yarn overs toward the right, and then 2 toward the left with a row of knit in between. The wrong side rows we're purling. So this one's, this is nice. You can purl back, and then you just knit across and then purl back again. So if you think of 3 stockinette stitch rows between your hard work, whatever helps you remember your pattern. And, I'll tell you, the yarn overs, I'm never sure whether they're before the knit together or after the knit together, And so I always, where lace is concerned, I always follow the instructions. I just follow every single row, and I look at my instructions a lot. Maybe it's a faulty memory. I just like to know what I'm doing and enjoy the process. I want to work my hands maybe more than my brain when it comes to knitting sometimes. But this is a very nice, easy block to do. It's a nice lace pattern where you can see what's going on. Sometimes lace, for me anyway, I can read my knitting with cables and texture. Lace confuses me sometimes. I can't tell if I'm coming or going. So this one's a nice, easy one for you to learn your increases and decreases. And really, that's, you know, you're toward the end of your education in beginning knitting, because you've learned the knit stitch, the purl stitch. You've learned how to increase a stitch, decrease a stitch. We were working right slanting decreases with our knit two together. We're also going to be learning on this next row, we're going to be learning left slanting decreases. And do you remember when I was talking about slipping your stitch purlwise? This is where we are going to do the opposite. We're going to be slipping knitwise because it is a decrease. If you'll remember, I said if there's a decrease going on, we want to slip knitwise. So we've done our edge stitch. We need to knit 3. And now I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this left slanting decrease. The first one is what I grew up knowing. It maybe is the old-fashioned kind of decrease. I'm not really sure, but it's known as a slip 1, and we're slipping it knitwise. We're going through the front, slip 1, then we're going to knit 1, then we're going to pass the slipped stitch over, just like we're binding off. Okay, that's it. And then we want to, whoops, you know, remember I said I'm never sure when to do my yarn over? I was so hasty in getting that decrease done, I forgot my yarn over. So we need to bring our yarn over, then slip, knit, and pass the slip stitch over. You're going to see that yarn over sometimes gets in the way. Just crawl underneath there, bring it over, and you'll see that nice knit stitch. It's not crossed at all, and I'll show you an example of a crossed stitch. And then we're just going to do our 5 stitches just like we did before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, yarn over. If we had slipped to purl, we're going to slip to purl. This is just an example. And then knit, and then pass that slipped stitch over. Can you see now how the legs are crossed? This one is over the other one. And that's not really what we want. That's pretty too. And if that's where you would like to go, that's perfectly fine. But for this pattern, we don't want that. So we are going to slip it knitwise. And then knit, and then pass it over. And we get that nice and open look. Now, the left slanting decrease that I tend to use most of the time is the SSK. I mentioned it once before. And what the SSK is, it simply means slip, slip, and then we're going to knit in these 2 stitches. So we're just going to get them on our needle. We are going to make sure our yarn over is in its position, wrap it around the needle, and bring it through. Isn't that easy? So just to show it to you again, you're going to slip, slip, both of them in the knit position, go through both of these with your left hand needle. You're working from your left hand needle to the right, and then you wrap the yarn around and pull it through. Okay, but we don't want that there because that's not what we're doing. We are doing our knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, do whichever one you prefer. I like doing the slip knit. It's got a nice rhythm to it. Make sure you pick up all of the plies. But the slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over, that's very nice too. That's fine. And you're going to see it. Sometimes it's going to be spelled out, and past the slip stitch over will be abbreviated PSSO. Sometimes you'll see it just as SKP, slip, knit, pass. Different ways of abbreviating. So every time you start a pattern, you need to look at the abbreviations, how they're doing things. Every pattern is different. If you stick with one book, one magazine, they are always consistent within that book or magazine. But that is our nice lace panel. What do you think? And you can also see, where we've worked into this stitch and worked into this stitch. So basically we've got 2 stitches in between that, you could always alter the pattern and get rid of those 2 stitches. So instead of working 5 stitches, you would only work, 3, and it would squash it. Neat things to do. But this is a nice airy pattern. There's just enough stockinette stitch in there to make it go quickly. It knits up very, very quickly. So hang on a second and I'll join you on the other view. Okay, so what do we think of this block? It's nice, huh? You can see the lace really clearly now, can't you? It's a nice one. It's a nice lace pattern. It allows you to see where it's going. It's not too complicated. And since most of it is stockinette stitch, it knits up quickly. So keep on with your blocks. Some of you are brand new at this, and I'm sure these blocks are a learning process, and every technique, you have to wrap your head around it a little bit, but you're doing really, really well. And you've got all of the skills necessary to do something even more challenging than this Afghan project. Now, this was something that I had in mind to do. A nice viewer asked if I could be doing some socks as well. And yes, we're going to be doing socks. So I was out today. It's a gorgeous day today, and I was running some errands. Stopped by Michael's because I have a Michael's, relatively close by. I know the store inside and out, and they send the coupons. So I have a Joanne. I tend to frequent Michael's more often just because it's easier for me to get to. But they have this nice Peyton's Croy sock yarn. This is a 75% wool, 25% nylon. And that makes it so that they hold up. They're wool, they're soft, they're easy to knit with, they're sturdy, but that little bit of nylon makes them easier to care for, and it gives them a little more strength. So there was another colorway that I liked, but I wanted 3 skeins. 2 skeins will give you a nice pair of socks, but I wanted a little more length, and I wanted not to run short. They had 3. I grabbed 3. This is a pretty colorway called Coastal Stripes. Isn't that pretty? It's got a blue-gray, a gray, a little bit of a darker blue, and we're going to see what this does. One of the early self-striping yarns that I used, it formed like a little Fair Isle pattern, and that was kind of cute. Some of them just do, undulating colors, and, they're all fun, and you don't really know what you're going to get until you start. So what I did was I pulled out some socks that I have on the go. I've got this nice bag that I keep my socks in, and when I am traveling somewhere, for instance, if I've got a 4-hour train ride, I'll take this along. You can get a lot done by just working a few rounds at a time. We have been knitting our block in rows. When you knit circularly, they're called rounds. Um, and instead of using a circular needle, I use double pointed needles. I'll show you. They're very thin. Can you see the difference in the diameters? Our straight needles are pointy. When you get to these larger sizes, they're more blunt. So you've got a little bit of a tip. These are sharper. These are much, much sharper. I'm not sure if these are 2.25 or 2.5 or what. But these are much sharper. So you can hurt yourself with these double pointed needles. And like I say, the purpose is to allow you to knit around and around and around. What you do is you just start knitting and you knit onto this needle, and then this needle is free. You take this needle and then you work it onto this needle. You know what I mean? So you're just working around and around and around. This is the colorway that I'm getting with this yarn. It's this nice gray blue. This is an unblocked sock, so it doesn't look like much right now, but you can see a little bit of a sock shape forming. This one is a little farther along. What I like to do is knit them. They're not exactly 2 at a time, but I knit both socks, together, I should say. And there's where the toe is going to be coming together. And here's our ribbing, a double rib. Then we've got stockinette stitch. Now, along in here, we're going to be decreasing. That's what we just learned today. So now you know how to decrease. The only thing that I haven't yet shown you, which I'll show you in this, is we need to pick up some stitches. And basically all that means is kind of like when we were working our crochet border. You're just sort of sticking your needle down into a stitch and calling that a stitch. Or sticking your needle in, wrapping yarn around, pulling it through to form a stitch. So anyway, this is our block for this week. I'm going to keep doing these blocks until I run out of blocks to do. So you can accumulate an awful lot of these nice blocks. You can keep them in an afghan for reference, or you can just keep having fun with them and sew them into an afghan and parcel them out as gifts. Either is fine. And then we're going to tackle a sock. That's going to be our next project in a few weeks. We'll get there in a few weeks. But if you want to start stocking up on things, this is the Peyton's Croy that I recommend. And they recommend a US size 2 needle. So if you want to get some US size 2 double pointed needles, that would be a safe thing to get. They're also known as 2.75 millimeter, and that should be a good size for you. But the yarn is smaller. It's a number 1 super fine. What we're working with right now is a number 4 medium. So it goes from size 1 to size 4. That's a pretty significant jump. So you're going to find that the socks are finer. They're going to be more fiddly to work with, but it's going to be so satisfying to get something done, something that you can wear or gift. So that's going to be our next project. I hope to keep on with more and more projects, hats, mittens, sweaters. We can do it all. We've got the foundation, we've got the basics, and we just have to put them all together. So join me again. I'll be coming back. I hope you guys will be coming back too. Spread the word. If you're in a senior type community, spread the word that I'm here, and anybody that wants to learn how to knit from home can tune in. If you are a teacher or someone associated with younger people, let them know here's a safe environment where you can learn to knit. Share. Please share my videos, because the best way is to get the word out that that we can learn to knit easily. We don't have to leave our home and go to a formal class somewhere where, you know, maybe we're intimidated. Maybe there's pressure to buy all of their supplies and not use what we have on hand. You know, there's a myriad of reasons why you would want to learn something from your home via YouTube. It's a great place for learning. So like, share, subscribe, all of that, and we'll build a community and we'll do more and more and more. Okay, so I'm coming back. You do the same. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon.